leaving performance on the table. The question lingering in my mind was simple. Why did this hammer have 4 properties instead of 3? Was it a manufacturing anomaly? A hidden flaw that added an extra property as compensation? Or was this genuinely a superior piece of equipment that had been underpriced? I intended to find out before spending 30,000 points. Even with money to spare, I was not the type to buy something I did not fully understand. I picked up the purple Thunder Diamond hammer and immediately understood why it had 4 properties instead of 3. The thing was absurdly heavy. Even with my current strength, I struggled with it. When I activated my lightning body to control it, the weight became manageable but still taxing. Using it would drain my magic power much faster. I estimated about 3 hours before I would be completely emptied. But the efficiency boost would be significant. I thought about it briefly and decided to buy it anyway. The value was too good to pass up. Once my stats climbed higher, the weight would stop being a problem. I was going to need a new hammer eventually, so why not get one I could grow into? When I told the girl I wanted it, she did not seem surprised. Then she said something unexpected. Because of my performance over the past 2 days, every weapon I had left on consignment at the guild had sold out completely. The total came to 158,000 points. She had planned to deliver the money to me tomorrow, but since I was here, she processed it on the spot. I was stunned. I knew winning the competition would boost my reputation, but I had not expected all my inventory to sell instantly. After paying 30,000 for the hammer, my balance jumped to 128,000. With that kind of money, I could finally invest in proper training resources. That had been the whole point of forging nonstop these past weeks. Earn money, buy resources, get stronger. I carried the heavy hammer home first. Just holding it gave me a strange excitement. Training with something this heavy would push my strength up fast. Then I headed to the shop to browse training supplies. When I walked in, I ran into Shaga and her group. Their sales guide was Stacy, the same girl who had helped us before. Stacy greeted me warmly and said it had been a while. Shaga, Winnie, and Gato all turned to look at me. Shaga told me they had taken on a simpler mission since I was not available to join them. They could handle it with their own strength. I could tell they had all matured a bit since I last saw them. They had clearly been working hard and making progress. I nodded with approval. Stacy offered to show all of us around together. Shaga agreed eagerly. I could sense she was trying to stay calm, but underneath she was still nervous around me. She had never really gotten over her feelings, and now that I kept growing stronger and more famous, the distance between us was only widening. I noticed it, but did not address it. Some things were better left alone. Gato watched me silently from behind. Ever since I saved his life, he had been training like a madman, trying to catch up so he could repay the debt someday. But the gap kept getting wider, not smaller. I could see the frustration in his eyes, mixed with stubborn determination. He was not the type to give up. If he could not match my pace, he would just push himself harder, double, 5 times, 10 times the effort. I respected that mentality. Stacy asked what level of resources I needed. I told her 3rd-tier lightning attribute resources. Shaga and the others froze. 3rd-tier resources were meant for people around level 30. They had not realized I had already reached that stage. We went up to the 2nd floor, which carried resources from Tier 2 through Tier 4. This was the first time Shaga's group had even been up here. Stacy began showing me the options. First was Thunder Iron Stone, a tiny mineral the size of a fingernail, worn on the body to slowly enhance constitution for lightning users. 1,000 points each. I could tell it was a quality item, but the growth rate was painfully slow. My natural attribute gains were already faster than what this thing offered. Not worth it. Next was Thunder Fruit, a mild consumable that lightning types could eat raw without any processing. It boosted magic power based on how developed your body was. 2,000 points each. Interesting, but not amazing. Then she showed me Thunder Spirit Pills. These were used during training to massively accelerate magic power growth, with an additional effect of strengthening the body's foundation. 3,000 points per bottle, 10 pills per bottle. I looked over the options carefully, calculating costs and benefits in my head. With over 100,000 points to spend, I needed to be smart about it. The Thunder Spirit Pills seemed like the best value. Direct training enhancement with foundation strengthening was exactly what I needed right now. The Thunder Fruit had potential too, since my body development was already far ahead of most people my age, meaning I would probably get above-average returns from eating them. The key was not to waste money on things that grew me slower than I was already growing naturally. Every purchase had to accelerate my progress beyond what I could achieve on my own. Otherwise, it was just throwing points away. Stacy finished explaining the products, and I asked about side effects. She said everything they sold was mild and safe, but there were limits. Thunderfruit, only 3 per person, ever. After 3, the body stops responding to it. Thunder Spirit pills, maximum 3 per day, or you start taking damage. Good enough for me. I started ordering. 3 Thunder Fruits, 2 bottles of Thunder Spirit pills, 2 bottles of third-tier body strengthening potions, 5 bottles of second-tier power pills, 5 bottles of second-tier magic recovery potions. Shaga and her group went completely silent, watching me rattle off the list like I was ordering dinner. The total came to 31,500 points. But because I spent over 30,000 in one purchase, I qualified for VIP status. 5% discount on everything going forward. Final price, 29,925 points. I swiped my badge without flinching. It was a lot of money, but I could earn it back quickly. I noticed Shaga, Winnie, and Gato staring at me like statues. I told them I had things to do and left. If they needed anything, they could come find me. Back home, I pulled out the Thunderfruits first. They looked like purple apples, which honestly reminded me of a witch's poisoned apple. Not the most appetizing sight, but I bit into one anyway. A mild electric current flowed through my mouth. Strange but pleasant, almost exciting. I finished the fruit quickly. The current spread through my entire body, and my magic power started climbing rapidly. My stats were already changing. Third-tier resources were no joke. But after a while, the pleasant feeling shifted into a stinging pain. I had expected that. Medicine always comes with some suffering. The pain stayed within my limits, though. If anyone had been watching, they would have seen veins bulging across my body, my heart pounding violently, my whole frame shaking like I was about to explode. I was glad I had told Milia not to watch me train. She would have fainted. An hour later, my body cooled down. Without hesitating, I ate the second fruit. Stacy had said they could be taken consecutively with no side effects. They just stopped working after 3. The second one hit harder. The pain was noticeably worse, but still bearable. Lightning energy was digging deeper into my body now, clearing out impurities, opening up pathways, making my magic flow smoother. After another hour, I could see my muscles had visibly tightened and hardened from the tempering. Then the third fruit. I knew what was coming but ate it without a pause. The lightning tore through me like a wild animal. I could not hold back a groan. The power inside me kept swelling and swelling until I lost control and punched the air beside me. My fist smashed straight through my bed, collapsing it. But I could not stop. I kept throwing punches in every direction, trying to release the overwhelming energy rampaging inside me. My room was getting destroyed, but I did not care. Milia heard the noise and looked toward my room with worry, but she remembered my instructions. No matter what happened, do not come in. She stayed away. That final hour was the longest of my life. Every second dragged. By the end, my room was wrecked, furniture smashed, walls dented. When the pain finally stopped, I dropped to the floor like a stone. There was absolutely no chance I was training anymore tonight. I needed rest. I checked my stats. Strength, 94. Agility, 73. Constitution, 82. Spirit, 70. All 4 had jumped dramatically. My magic power had surged. And the biggest surprise, my lightning attribute talent had gone up by 1 point, now sitting at 9. My other attributes read: Charm 82, Luck 6, Lifespan 96. My forging talent had climbed to 16, Hammer Technique talent to 5. The Thunderfruits had done far more than I expected. They had not just boosted my raw power. They had refined my body at a fundamental level, clearing pathways and strengthening my foundation in ways that normal training would have taken weeks to achieve. I lay on the floor of my destroyed room, staring at the ceiling. Tomorrow was the gold bracket competition. I would be walking in with stats that had exploded overnight. The purple Thunder Diamond Hammer was waiting for me too, and with my strength now at 94, it would not feel nearly as heavy as it had earlier tonight. Everything was accelerating. My growth, my resources, my connections, my enemies. The Alchemist Guild Master wanted me dead. The Pope was secretly backing me. York was investigating a possibly poisoned medicine bottle. Sophia was reporting my movements. And tomorrow I would be competing against blacksmiths up to 30 years old with only 2 months of forging experience. I smiled at the cracked ceiling. Let them come. All of them. This was the power of resources. When you had them, you could leave everyone without them far behind. Looking at my new stats gave me an instant energy boost. I felt less tired already. I dragged myself up and left my wrecked room. Milia looked over the moment my door opened. My clothes had been torn apart during the transformation, revealing most of my upper body. The muscles underneath were well-defined, but not exaggerated, lean and proportional. I seemed to have grown taller too. Everything about my frame looked more balanced and coordinated than before. Milia's face turned bright red, and she quickly looked away. I told her to heat up some bath water. She rushed off to prepare it. The house the church provided had decent amenities, including a bathtub with a small heating magic circle built in. You just fed it a little magic power, and the water warmed right up. Magic really did change daily life. Once the water was ready, I stripped off my ruined clothes and sank into the tub. The moment my body hit the warm water, I felt the tension melt away. The exhaustion that had been crushing me faded by half, almost instantly. Milia placed clean clothes and 2 drinks nearby without being asked. I told her I would be about 30 minutes and asked her to prepare food. Half an hour passed in what felt like seconds. I reluctantly climbed out, dried off, dressed, and headed to the dining area. The moment I bit into the first piece of meat, I stopped chewing. Something was different. I asked Milia what was going on with the meat today. She got nervous immediately. She explained that the delivery was different from usual. Instead of ordinary meat, today they had sent monster beast meat. She had been worried while cooking it, afraid I would not like it. I told her it was delicious, and it really was. The flavor was rich, the juices were incredible, and after swallowing, I could feel my magic power recovering slightly. This was not low-quality beast meat either. It was the good stuff. There was no way the delivery person had made a mistake. This was intentional. The Pope had started improving my living conditions, beginning with these small details. Not bad at all. Monster beast meat could not normally be eaten raw or unprepared because it contained toxins alongside its magic energy. But after centuries of fighting these creatures, humans had developed methods to remove the poison while preserving the magical properties. That made properly prepared beast meat extremely expensive. Higher-level beast meat was actually easier to process because stronger monsters had fewer toxins and more concentrated magic power. I ate until I physically could not swallow another bite. But that turned out to be only about a third of my usual portion. The magic energy in the meat was so dense that it filled me up completely in a fraction of the normal amount. One more mouthful, and everything would have come back up. I told Milia to try the leftover meat herself. It was genuinely good, and eating it regularly could strengthen her body and extend her lifespan. Then I remembered and came back to tell her to only cook a third of the usual amount from now on. I simply could not finish more than that. She nodded and took a curious bite. Her eyes lit up immediately. She could taste the difference too. Back in my room, I stared at the destruction I had caused. The bed was collapsed, furniture was smashed, and there were dents in the walls. I had completely forgotten about the mess. Fortunately, one corner of the mattress was still flat enough to lie on, good enough for one night. Before closing my eyes, I thought about Quinn. I had eaten at his house before and noticed his family only had ordinary meat. If I could share the beast meat with him, it would boost his growth significantly. But I could not just hand it over without explanation. If someone noticed my food supply had changed, and then Quinn suddenly started eating beast meat too, they would connect the dots to the Pope backing me. That would put me in serious danger. I thought about it for a long time, but could not find a safe excuse. Every option had the risk of exposure. So I decided to wait. Once I was stronger and more established, I could find a way to help Quinn without drawing attention. It was frustrating. I wanted to repay him now, but the timing was wrong. Protecting the secret of my relationship with the Pope was more important than immediate gratitude. I made peace with that reasoning and drifted off to sleep. Then the notification hit. Lightning attribute talent +1. Again, my lightning talent was now at 10 points. The lucky stat was working overtime. First, the full attribute boost. Now another lightning talent point on top of the one from the thunder fruits. This was getting ridiculous. Sleep was suddenly impossible. I jumped up and started practicing the thunder summoning technique. The difference was immediate and staggering. Magic power flowed through me at a speed I had never experienced before. It felt like I could control it with pure thought. No effort at all. The sensation was intoxicating. I lost myself in the practice completely. When I finally came back to awareness, morning light was streaming through the window. The entire night had passed without me noticing, and my thunder summoning technique had broken through to level 4. At level 4, something fundamental changed. I could feel lightning attribute magic power constantly circulating through my body without any conscious effort on my part. It was identical to having my lightning body enhancement active at all times, but it cost 0 magic power. The lightning body had become a permanent passive ability for me now. The implications were massive. Because it was passive, I could activate the regular lightning body enhancement on top of it. When I tested this, my physical attributes doubled again from an already enhanced baseline. The numbers reached a level that was frankly terrifying. My base stats were already at the point where I matched S-Rank talent holders in raw growth speed. Now, with double lightning body stacked on a passive enhancement, my combat potential in short bursts was something else entirely. I stood in my destroyed room, lightning crackling faintly across my skin without any effort on my part. I was 16 years old, 2 months into my training, and I could already feel the gap between me and the people who wanted me dead shrinking rapidly. A few more weeks of this kind of growth and the balance of power would shift permanently. Today was the gold bracket competition. Time to see how a 16-year-old with 10 points in lightning talent compared against experienced blacksmiths twice his age. I pulled on fresh clothes, grabbed my new purple Thunder Diamond hammer, and headed for the door. I picked up the purple Thunder Diamond hammer again. The heaviness from yesterday was gone. It actually felt lighter than my old diamond hammer now. My overnight stat gains had completely solved the weight problem. I checked my attributes and noticed something odd. After the Thunder summoning breakthrough, each stat had only gone up by 2 or 3 points. I had expected a bigger jump from reaching level 4. I made a mental note to ask Quinn about it. I headed out for the gold bracket competition, but barely made it past my street before running into York. He had been waiting at the intersection for me since early morning. He got straight to the point. After studying Rien's medicine all night, he had found the problem. The pills contained an herb called purple vein grass. In small doses, it genuinely helped with training and boosting strength. But in larger amounts, it was extremely addictive. Even level 60 powerhouses could not control themselves once hooked. The symptoms included hallucinations, convulsions, and fainting. If you kept consuming it, the toxins would accumulate and start eating away at your internal organs. The good news was that the amount in Rien's pills was not enough to cause instant severe addiction. It would only create a mild dependency. But I could see the full picture clearly. Once I finished the bottle and started craving more, Rien would have me exactly where he wanted me. He would control the supply and move to the next phase of whatever plan he had. Anger surged through me. I had never provoked Rien. We had not even met before yesterday. Yet he was already trying to destroy me without a word of explanation. Fine. If that was how he wanted to play it, I would not forget this. York suggested I not take the pills, but instead sell them individually. 1 pill at a time would cause no harm to anyone, and I could make decent money from it. I laughed and thanked him. We parted ways at the intersection, both carrying new worries. I arrived at the arena and spotted several familiar faces in the audience. Shaga and her group were there. I waved and Winnie waved back, so enthusiastically her hand looked like a fan. Then I noticed Quinn sitting in a corner, trying to hide. He had clearly snuck in to watch me compete, but did not want to seem like he cared. I spotted him immediately and walked over. He started scrambling internally, probably preparing some excuse for why he was here. I called his name. He tried to play it cool, then gave up and admitted he was curious about the forging competition. Then his expression changed suddenly. He stared at me with disbelief. He asked if my thunder summoning technique had broken through. I confirmed it and told him that was actually what I wanted to talk to him about. He went quiet for a moment. I could tell the news hit him hard. He was only at peak level 4 himself, and he had been practicing for years. He had expected me to need a few more months at least. He guessed my question before I asked it. He knew I was wondering why my stat boost from the breakthrough felt smaller than expected. He explained that over the next month, my stats would continue rising by a small amount each day, similar to today's gain. When I did the math, that meant roughly 60 to 70 points added to each attribute over a month. That was an enormous total gain. Quinn told me something else that stuck with me. He said that from this point forward, I was no longer an ordinary person. He could see how drastically the thunder summoning technique was enhancing me, and this was only a basic lightning technique. In the future, if I learned more advanced lightning methods, my power would grow even further beyond what anyone could predict. He was right. The thunder summoning technique was not even a high-level method. The reason I seemed so overwhelmingly powerful compared to people my age was simply my ridiculous growth speed. Most of my peers were still stuck on level 1 of their techniques, or had not even started properly. I was already at level 4. That gap made me look invincible, but it was really just a head start. The real power would come later, when I had techniques worthy of my talent. The reason I progressed so much faster than others, even with a mid-level technique, was my approach to training. Most people just grinded mindlessly in one direction. I would stop periodically, review what I had just done, and adjust if anything felt off. I refused to continue down a wrong path. It might not look like the fastest method, but it was incredibly stable. No wasted effort, no backtracking, no irreversible mistakes. The gold bracket had about 2,000 contestants, far fewer than the 4,000 in bronze. That seemed strange since the academy had been running for years, producing graduates constantly. But the death rate at the academy was horrifyingly high, and many people who survived ended up leaving the blacksmith profession entirely. The middle generation had been gutted by attrition. If the blacksmith guild ever became the top guild, that problem would fix itself as more people stuck with the craft. Looking at these competitors, I grew cautious. Just watching them, I could feel how strong they were. Every single one had steady, determined eyes, as if each believed they could win the whole thing. This was nothing like bronze. The rules were different too. We still used officially provided materials, but this time we chose our own from a selection of magic-grade crafting materials. If we passed this round, the next one would require forging hero-grade weapons. I was genuinely curious whether I could manage that. The time limit was 24 hours instead of 8. That made sense. Magic-grade forging was exponentially harder, and 8 hours would not let anyone show their real abilities. I picked my materials and fired up the star-picking furnace. In bronze, my equipment advantage had been massive. Today, not so much. Some contestants pulled out furnaces ranked even higher than mine. These were people 10 or 15 years older than me with decades of accumulation. Among them were mostly advanced blacksmiths, a good number of full blacksmiths, and 5 forging masters. Even Guildmaster Kono was technically young enough to compete, but chose not to. As a grandmaster, he had nothing left to prove. The audience was the largest yet. Drew and Sophia had also entered the gold bracket. They knew they would not rank high, but any finish outside dead last came with rewards. Free money was free money. When the competition started, something shocked everyone. My forging speed was keeping up with the first tier of competitors. I was behind the 5 forging masters, sure, but I was matching the regular blacksmith stride for stride. Kono noticed and quickly figured out why. My stats had jumped overnight from the training resources I bought. The other guild leaders reached the same conclusion, but the ordinary spectators who did not understand resource-boosted growth were losing their minds. One day had passed, and I looked like a completely different smith. Not everyone was happy about the attention I was getting. One of the 5 forging masters was visibly irritated. He believed he should be the star of this competition, not some teenage upstart. He admitted I had talent, but thought this was not my era yet. His anger did not affect his hands, though. His technique stayed flawless even while he fumed. I ignored all of it and focused purely on my work. A quarter hour in, a large wave of blacksmiths, including me, began the first refinement almost simultaneously. 10 minutes later, first refinement done. 20 minutes after that, second refinement complete. A few smiths started falling behind. 40 minutes more, third refinement finished. More dropped off. 2 hours in, fourth refinement done. Half the blacksmiths had now fallen out of pace. I was still in the pack. For hours, fifth refinement complete. 7 hours, sixth refinement done. Normally by this point, I would have been struggling, but today felt completely different. My body was flowing with passive lightning energy. My stats had exploded overnight, and the purple thunder diamond hammer felt like an extension of my arm. I was still comfortable. Not tired, not strained. Just steady and focused. The audience started buzzing. They wanted to know how far I could go. If I kept pace until the very end, it would prove I already had the skill level of a top-tier blacksmith, at 16 years old with 2 months of experience. Kono watched me from the stands and figured I would probably surpass 7 refinements this time. He had apparently stopped comparing me to his younger self. He admitted I had surpassed him in forging ability. 12 hours in, I completed the 6th refinement. The first tier of competitors had started to separate by speed, and I was no longer the fastest among them. But with 24 hours total, I had plenty of time. I activated my lightning body to push faster and started the 7th refinement. Even though a 7 times refined magic-grade weapon was incredibly hard, my new hammer and boosted stats made it feel manageable. At hour 16, I finished the 7th refinement. 8 hours remained. I could feel that an 8th refinement was possible, but I was not sure I could finish in time. I looked ahead at the 5 forging masters. They had already completed 11 refinements and were resting, though I noticed they were all watching me. My speed had clearly shocked them. After a brief hesitation, I committed to the 8th refinement. I was not content being a chaser. For the past few days, I had been the best in every competition. Today, I was playing catch-up, and honestly, that feeling bothered me. I wanted to push further. Under the lightning body enhancement, my forging speed was blazing. But something else started happening that I did not notice at first. Kono spotted it from above. My movements were becoming smoother with every strike, as if the hammer and I were merging into one. My star forging hammer technique had quietly broken through to level 3, proficient mastery. It had actually overtaken my thunderclap sword technique, which I had been learning longer. The reason made sense when I thought about it later. The star forging hammer technique was fundamentally a power-based method. The stronger the user's body, the easier it was to grasp the technique's essence. Hammer techniques were also inherently less demanding on pure talent than swordsmanship. Combined with weeks of daily forging practice, the breakthrough was almost inevitable. With the upgraded technique, everything clicked into place. At hour 19, I completed the 8th refinement. I immediately started shaping and finishing without checking the clock. I assumed I had only 2 or 3 hours left. I finished all assembly by hour 21. Then I looked at the time and froze. 3 full hours remained. I had completely misjudged my own speed. Checking my stats, I found small increases across the board, the lingering effects of the thunder summoning breakthrough, just as Quinn had described. And then I saw it in my skill list. Star Forging Hammer, level 3. I had not even realized it happened during forging. With 3 hours to spare, I used the time wisely. I inspected every detail of my sword, the grip feel, the blade sharpness, the balance. I wrapped the handle with cord to improve durability and comfort, which also made the whole weapon look more refined. The blacksmiths around me watched in silence as I fussed over every tiny detail. Several of them swallowed hard. This kind of obsessive attention to finishing was exactly what separated good smiths from great ones. Once I was satisfied, the examiner took my sword for testing. Since there were many contestants, they tested weapons as they came in. The examiner gripped my sword and immediately noticed the quality of the feel. He channeled lightning magic through it and swung. A terrifying arc of lightning sword energy flashed out and sliced through an iron training dummy, cutting it clean in half. He noted the lightning attribute amplification was excellent, roughly a 30% power boost for a 3rd-tier fighter. The magic conductivity was flawless, with 0 lag during power transfer. Then he flooded the blade with massive amounts of magic to test structural integrity. The sword hummed softly, but showed no cracks at all. Every test earned another satisfied nod from the examiner. Final score, 92 points. I exhaled with relief. The 5 forging masters had all scored perfect hundreds. The blacksmiths ranked above me scored between 90 and 90-something. 90 was essentially the minimum standard for this tier's established blacksmiths. At 92, I had cleared that bar comfortably as a 16-year-old competing against people nearly twice my age. I headed to the rest area and sat down to watch the remaining contestants finish their work. As I settled in, the familiar notification chimed in my head. 1 constitution point gained for the day. The thunder summoning breakthrough was still feeding me steady growth, exactly as Quinn had promised. Drew and Sophia were still forging while I rested. Drew had switched back to normal forging instead of fire forging. Yesterday's method had clearly taken a toll on him. He completed 6 refinements, and his new furnace was obviously helping. Sophia matched him at 6. Everyone had grown through this tournament, but I shifted my attention to the blacksmiths who were still working ahead of me. They were slower not because they lacked skill, but because they were pushing 9, 10, even 11 refinements. Every one of them was stronger than me at this stage. I clenched my fists watching them. The gap was real, but I knew it would not last long. I studied their techniques carefully, absorbing everything I could. These top-tier blacksmiths were my next target. When the results came in, my 92 points earned me rank 141. Only the top 100 advanced, which meant I was eliminated. I was not surprised. The gold bracket had over 300 full blacksmiths competing. Ranking 141 actually meant I had surpassed most of them. My problem was simply time. 2 months of forging experience left too many gaps in my knowledge. The prize for my rank was a large batch of high-quality ores worth about 20,000 points. I was satisfied with that. First place went to a forging master named Dick, the same guy who had been annoyed about me stealing his spotlight all day. After collecting his award, he marched straight toward me through the crowd. The audience got excited, thinking they were about to witness a veteran encouraging a rising star. A touching moment of passing the torch. The guild leaders knew better. Kono's face went dark immediately. Gugong asked if they should stop him. Kono shook his head. There was no stopping Dick. The man was 29 years old with the competitive heart of an 18-year-old. He would never admit anyone was better than him. Dick stopped in front of me, stuck out his thumb, then flipped it upside down. He told me I was nowhere near ready to compete with him and called me a brat. Then he turned around and walked away. I stood there stunned for a second. Was this guy seriously a forging master? He was acting like a child. But I had to admit, his petty provocation actually lit a fire in me. I almost laughed from the sheer audacity. In my head, I was screaming, "Just give me 3 years, old man, and I will crush you." That was too childish to say out loud, though. I was better than that. "Give me 3 years," I said. Dick spun around. I told him that within 3 years, I would surpass him. His eyes turned serious. The crowd was confused. What happened to the heartwarming generational moment? He scoffed and said 30 years would not be enough, let alone 3. He told me not to compare him to the weaklings I had been beating. I called him scared. I said old men were like that. That word, old, made him snap instantly. He accepted the challenge on the spot. 3 years. If I surpassed him, he would admit I was better and apologize. The promise of an apology from a forging master set my blood on fire. I told him 3 years, and we would see. He left. The audience did not know what to make of us. Some thought we were both idiots whose cool images had just shattered. But most were genuinely excited to see how the 3-year bet would play out. Over the next 5 days, I watched the remaining competitions. 2 days for the gold bracket finals, 3 days for the diamond bracket. As a spectator, I learned an enormous amount, especially from Diamond. Dick competed there too and showed his real abilities, successfully forging a glorious grade weapon. He only placed third because the guild master and vice master also entered, but third among diamond tier masters was still incredible. I talked trash about him in my head, but honestly, I learned a great deal from watching his techniques. During those 5 days, my stats continued climbing from the thunder summoning breakthrough. Strength gained 14, agility 12, constitution 11, spirit 15. The steady daily growth Quinn had described was adding up fast, and we were not even halfway through the month-long effect yet. After the forging tournament ended, I returned to my daily routine of training and forging. But a new event was approaching, the Newcomer Combat Tournament. Winning first place there would raise my noble rank by 1 tier. My current rank of Viscount was already decent, but climbing higher was always welcome. My schedule was packed. Every day felt busy. Training had become my main priority now. Meanwhile, the Pope had seen my tournament results. Even though he already knew about my forging talent, my performance in the gold bracket apparently shocked him. He was starting to believe I could one day become a divine craftsman, someone capable of forging god-tier weapons. Each divine weapon would deepen the church's foundation and strength. The thought clearly excited him. He had already locked down information within the church to prevent my results from spreading, but he knew that was only a temporary measure. Other nations would find out eventually. It was just a matter of time. The Pope also decided I needed some real combat experience before the upcoming tournament. He was planning to arrange something for me. The next morning, I woke up and started my basic training. My daily sword swings had increased to 10,000 repetitions. I had forged myself a special heavy training sword to make each swing count more. With my improved physical stats, 10,000 swings with that weight was the perfect training load. No need to increase the count when the difficulty per swing was already so high. After training, I planned to head to the guild and attempt forging hero-grade equipment. I still wanted to know if I could pull it off. But the moment I stepped outside, Sophia was waiting for me. The instant I saw her, I knew the Pope had sent her with a task. She asked me to go to the arena with her. The Colosseum, specifically. I was surprised. That place was dangerous. She acknowledged the risk, but explained that contestants ranked Viscount or above had protections in place. If you felt you were about to lose, you could surrender, and the staff would intervene to rescue you. Then she told me something that really caught my attention. For newcomers in their first 3 years at the church, achieving a 10-win streak at the Colosseum would directly raise your noble rank by 1 tier. I did the math instantly. If I won 10 straight at the Colosseum for 1 rank increase, and then took first place at the combat tournament for another rank increase, my rank would jump 2 full tiers. That would put me at Marquis, the same rank as Sacred Heart. I told Sophia I had always been interested in the Colosseum and just never had time before. She gave me a slightly exasperated look. She obviously knew about the incident with Sacred Heart that had happened there, but she did not bring it up. She simply agreed and said fighting magical beasts would also be excellent training for both of us. We headed to the Colosseum together. When we arrived, the manager recognized me immediately. I was the kid who had gotten into a fight with the Saintess and beaten her badly right here in this building. He had heard about my forging tournament results and my bronze bracket championship. He considered me a promising young talent. Despite the trouble I had caused last time, his impression of me was actually positive, so he did not give us any difficulty. He asked whether we were here to compete or watch. I thanked him for his help during the previous incident and told him we were here to compete. I asked about the rules. He explained that the format was simple. Fight a magical beast. Kill it, and you win. The beast's strength would be matched to the challenger's level. But first, I needed to take a level assessment. He pointed to a large testing stone nearby. I walked over and placed my hand on it, channeling a small amount of magic power into the surface. A faint white glow appeared, and then a number materialized in front of everyone. 27. The manager froze. Sophia froze. I could practically hear her brain short-circuiting. She had expected me to be around level 17 or 18. She had assumed my forging excellence came purely from talent, not raw power. But level 27 was absurd for a newcomer. That number should not exist among first-year students. It was completely outside the normal range. Now she was connecting the dots. My forging ability was not just talent. My ridiculous level was part of the equation too. Higher stats meant better control, more stamina, greater precision. Everything fed into everything else. The manager recovered from his surprise faster than Sophia did. He was a professional, after all. He had seen plenty of strong fighters come through these doors. But even he had to admit that a newcomer at level 27 was exceptional. I asked him what tier of beast my first fight would involve. Based on my level, a second-tier magical beast seemed like the appropriate match. Second-tier beasts were dangerous creatures that could kill careless fighters easily. But with my current stats and abilities, I was confident I could handle one. My passive lightning body enhancement was running constantly now, and I could stack the active version on top of it for short bursts of overwhelming power. The real question was not whether I could win one fight. It was whether I could win 10 in a row. A 10-win streak meant 10 consecutive battles against increasingly difficult opponents. The beasts would get stronger as the streak continued. By fight 7 or 8, I would probably be facing creatures that matched or exceeded my own level. By fight 10, I might be up against something genuinely terrifying. But that was exactly the kind of challenge I needed. The combat tournament was coming up, and I had almost no real fighting experience. My training consisted of sword swings and technique practice, but I had never fought a prolonged battle against a deadly opponent who was actively trying to kill me. Sparring with other students did not count. Magical beasts fought with pure instinct and zero hesitation. They would not hold back or follow tournament rules. Every fight would be a life-or-death situation with genuine stakes. Sophia seemed to be thinking along similar lines. She had combat experience that I lacked, and this trip was clearly designed to fix that gap. The Pope wanted me battle-tested before the tournament, not just strong on paper. I looked at the arena entrance. Behind those gates, beasts were waiting. Creatures bred and captured specifically to test the strength of the church's warriors. Some had been responsible for killing dozens of students over the years. The survival rate at this academy was horrifying, and the Colosseum was one of the reasons why. Mistakes here were paid for in blood. But standing at the entrance, I felt no fear, only anticipation. My body was humming with lightning energy, my stats were climbing daily, and I had a hammer technique that had just broken through to the next level. I was not the same person who had walked through these doors weeks ago and stumbled into a confrontation with Sacred Heart. I was stronger now, and after today, I would be stronger still. That was the only direction that mattered. Forward and upward, no matter what stood in the way. 10 wins would come. The rank increase would come. And eventually, so would everything else I had been working toward since the day I arrived at this academy with nothing but a strange talent and a determination to survive. I turned to the manager and nodded. We were ready to begin. The manager told me he would arrange a second-tier beast for my first fight and to wait in the rest area. He said future matches would be scheduled a day or two in advance, with someone sent to my house to notify me. Sophia and I headed to the public rest area. Since neither of us had any reputation here yet, we were in the common waiting room with a bunch of other competitors. I caught Sophia glancing at me repeatedly with the corner of her eye. She was clearly struggling to process how someone with such high forging talent could also be this strong in combat. She was over 3 years older than me and only level 46. That was considered excellent, even borderline top tier for her age. But I had reached level 27 in just 2 months at the academy. Give me 3 more years, and the gap would be terrifying. She was finally starting to understand why the Pope had assigned her to watch me. My existence did not make sense for someone with a supposed C-rank talent. Then I noticed something shift in her eyes. A new kind of calculation. She was looking at me differently now, with warmth that had not been there before. I read it instantly. She had figured out that my future was practically guaranteed. At minimum, I would become a cardinal. If she could win my heart, her own path through life would become much easier. I saw right through her. After spending this much time together, I knew Sophia was not the sweet girl she pretended to be. She was ambitious, opportunistic, and relentless about climbing higher. She would use every tool available to get what she wanted. An ordinary man would be wrapped around her finger within weeks. But she was dealing with me, and my past had made me far colder than she could imagine. I was good at reading people. If she actually tried to manipulate me romantically, her ending would be worse than she expected. She put on a concerned voice and asked if I was nervous. I was not nervous at all, but I could see what she was doing, so I played along. She cheered me on with a cute fist pump gesture, telling me I was strong enough to crush any beast easily. Her little performance did nothing for me, but it worked beautifully on everyone else in the room. Several men were already sneaking glances at her, completely charmed. One of them, a fellow Viscount, walked straight over to us. He struck what he probably thought was a dashing pose. He introduced himself as Prince Antoine, flashed his Viscount badge, and extended his hand towards Sophia, asking to get acquainted. Under normal circumstances, Sophia would have politely declined. She was picky about who she associated with. Someone at this level was not worth her time. But today, with me sitting right next to her, she changed tactics. She acted flustered and helpless, looking to me for rescue. Classic move, designed to trigger a man's protective instinct. I stood up, exactly as she wanted. I told him she was not interested and asked him to leave. He looked me over, noticed how young I was, and seemed briefly surprised. He probably knew better than to mess with a young prodigy. But then he looked at Sophia's face again, swallowed hard, and let his hormones override his judgment. He asked me who I thought I was, standing in his way. The atmosphere in the room shifted immediately. He had calculated that no matter how talented I was too young to be a real threat. My level was probably low. He figured he could bully me now and leave the academy in 2 years before I ever got strong enough to retaliate. Sophia wore a worried expression on the surface. Underneath, she was thrilled. She was about to get a show. He started repeating his insult, but before he could finish the sentence, I kicked him square in the chest. The impact sent him flying across the room. His back slammed into the wall, and he crumpled to the floor. He sat there motionless, head down, completely still. The room went quiet. People were scared. Price had a decent reputation here, a 3-win streak at the Colosseum. And I had just knocked him out cold with a single kick. Or possibly killed him. He was not moving at all. After about 15 seconds, he coughed twice and slowly raised his head. The pain in his chest was clearly agonizing. He had at least 3 broken ribs from that one blow. He tried to stand and say something, but instead vomited a mouthful of blood onto the floor. He stared at the blood in disbelief. He was level 41. Even caught off guard, his body should have been far tougher than a normal person's. How could a kid this young generate that kind of force with a casual kick? He said later it felt less like being kicked by a person and more like being trampled by an elephant. I walked toward him. He was still standing there, frozen. I was not worried about consequences. Sophia would clean this up. The whole incident started because of her, and if the Pope found out I had gotten into trouble because of her scheming, she might get replaced. She would make sure this disappeared quietly. That was the one useful thing about having the Pope's spy by my side. She had strong motivation to keep me out of trouble, even when she was the one creating it. Sophia grabbed my arm and pulled me back, telling me to calm down and that the guy had learned his lesson. I pretended to cool off, but the truth was I had never been angry in the first place. I was just playing along with her little game. She had made her move, and now I wanted to see what she would do next. Think of it as entertainment to spice up my daily routine. I told Price that Sophia had saved his life today, and that next time he saw us, he should walk the other way. He did not say a word. He clearly had no desire to experience another kick like that one. We sat back down together. Price stayed on the floor, playing dead, too scared to move. Sophia was actually happy about what had just happened. In her mind, my reaction proved that I cared about her. Why else would I get so heated on her behalf? She was thinking that with just a little more effort, she could have me wrapped around her finger completely. She had no idea how wrong she was. Soon a staff member came to find me. My match was ready. I stood up and followed him out of the rest area. Price finally dragged himself upright after I left. He was determined to watch my fight. He wanted to understand how a kid could nearly kill him with a single casual kick. He had convinced himself that I must be close to level 40 with some kind of strength-based talent. He also believed that if he had not been caught off guard, he could probably beat me in a fair fight. His injuries were the only reason he was not pushing for a rematch. That was what he told himself anyway. The staff led me to one of the smaller arenas. The main coliseum had one massive central stage, but surrounding it were numerous smaller fighting pits for lower-profile matches. Mine was in one of these side arenas, with a thin scattering of spectators sitting around the edges. I scanned my surroundings quickly, then focused forward. Sophia had followed to watch, and I noticed Price had found himself a corner seat too. Price was still trying to figure out my level. Based on the power of my kick, he estimated I was close to 40 with a strength-type talent. He could not imagine any other explanation for how much damage I had done to his body. Then my opponent entered the arena, and Price's entire theory collapsed. The beast they released was a second-tier savage black boar. That meant my level was in the 20s. The realization hit him like a second kick to the chest. The kid who had nearly killed him was not even level 30. He was not some hidden high-level fighter. He was just a 20-something newcomer with freakish power. Price wanted to scream. A few spectators were looking at me with interest, though not because of my age or level. It was my appearance. The thunder summoning technique had been refining my body daily in subtle ways. My charm stat was now at 83. Tall, well-proportioned, broad shoulders tapering to a narrow waist, pale skin, and absurdly long legs. The overall effect was apparently quite striking. Several people in the stands were staring and whispering. I ignored all of it. When I saw the savage black boar, I kept my expression serious. I knew without question that this beast was no match for me, but I refused to let that knowledge make me careless. A lion uses its full strength even when hunting a rabbit. This was a life-or-death arena, not a training exercise. Overconfidence killed people. I had one life, and I was not going to lose it to something as stupid as underestimating an opponent. But then something unexpected happened. The moment the boar locked eyes with me, it went completely still. The creature that had been thrashing and snorting with rage just seconds before suddenly calmed down. It started backing away slowly, its eyes fixed on me with something that looked unmistakably like fear. The crowd murmured in confusion. One person said the boar looked scared. Another argued that was impossible, suggesting maybe it just was not hungry. A third pointed out that these arena beasts were deliberately starved to the edge of madness before fights. Hunger was not the issue. Price and Sophia were both stunned. They had never seen anything like this. A single look from a human making a magical beast freeze with terror was not normal behavior, but it made perfect sense to me. Animals had survival instincts. The boar was smart enough to sense that I was a predator far beyond its ability to handle. No matter how hungry it was, its body was telling it to run. Pigs were actually very intelligent creatures. This one had correctly assessed the situation and chosen not to provoke me. The referee noticed what was happening, but did not stop the match. He seemed as confused as everyone else, but rules were rules. The fight would continue until one side won. Since the boar was not going to come to me, I went to it. I charged forward. The boar let out a terrified shriek, trying to scare me off with the sound. It did not work. I was not the kind of person who flinched at noise. I closed the distance in seconds. When I reached the boar, I drew my sword and swung once. A single clean horizontal slash. The 2-meter-long savage black boar, bones and all, was split perfectly in half. Blood sprayed across the arena floor. The entire venue went silent. That was it. One hit. Instant kill. A second-tier magical beast had tough outer hide that ordinary weapons could barely scratch. And I had just sliced through the whole thing like cutting paper. At my level, in my 20s, this should have been impossible. But my stats were far beyond what my level suggested, and my sword technique was leagues ahead of anyone my age. Raw numbers combined with refined skill created something that had no answer at this tier. The silence lasted several seconds before the referee found his voice. He announced my victory and advancement. I sheathed my sword and walked toward the exit without looking back. The Colosseum operated as a business. They needed to make money, which meant they would not let a strong fighter burn through all 10 matches in a single day. Their strategy was to identify powerful competitors, package them as star attractions, promote them, and use their fights to draw paying crowds. One devastating performance was exactly what they wanted for marketing purposes. I understood the system. They would schedule my next fight in a day or two, giving them time to spread the word about the newcomer who split a boar in half with one swing. That suited me fine. I had training to do between matches anyway. Every day my stats were climbing from the Thunder Summoning breakthrough, and I still had Thunder Spirit pills to use during practice sessions. By the time my 10th fight came around, I would be even stronger than I was today. Price sat in his corner, staring at the blood-soaked arena floor. He had watched a kid in his 20s do something that most fighters in their 40s could not. Whatever excuses he had been building in his head about surprise attacks and unfair advantages had just been demolished. I was simply stronger. There was no arguing with what he had just seen. Sophia met me at the exit with wide eyes and a carefully constructed smile. I could almost hear the gears turning in her head, recalculating my value upward yet again. I smiled back at her, letting her think whatever she wanted. As long as she was useful and the Pope kept feeding me resources through her, I was content to let this little game continue. When I came out of the arena, Sophia was looking at me with genuine admiration this time. Before, her interest had been calculated. Now there was something real mixed in. She had seen me split a beast in half with one swing, and that kind of raw power apparently triggered something deeper in her. She was the type of woman who was naturally drawn to strength. This only made her more determined to win me over, not just for a comfortable future anymore, but because she was actually starting to develop feelings. She asked if I had someone I liked. The question caught me off guard. Julia's face flashed through my mind. She had been a light in my darkest moment. I felt gratitude toward her, maybe a little warmth, but I would not call it love. It was hard to separate genuine affection from simple thankfulness when someone saved you at your lowest point. Sophia noticed me spacing out and immediately regretted asking. She could tell I was thinking about someone. That complicated her plans. Teenage boys could be fiercely loyal to their first feelings. But she was not discouraged. She figured she could handle a little competition. In her mind, no distant memory could stand against a present, persistent, beautiful woman working her charm up close every single day. She asked what I was doing next. I told her I was heading to the blacksmith guild to forge. She lit up and said she was going there too. I did not turn her down. I wanted to observe her next moves. Meanwhile, the Pope had already heard about everything that happened at the Colosseum. His shadow agent reported the incident with Price and also flagged Sophia's behavior. The shadow suggested replacing her since she appeared to be manipulating my emotions. The Pope considered it, and something sad crossed his face. He seemed to remember something painful from his own past. Then he decided to leave things alone. He said I would have to deal with matters of the heart eventually. If I got hurt and recovered from it, the experience would make me stronger. If I fell hard, even that would not necessarily be a bad thing. He told the shadow to keep watching and report anything unusual, then dismissed him. So the Pope was going to let Sophia play her games with me. Interesting. He was treating this as part of my education. I did not know about this conversation at the time, but I probably would